Hey guys, TommyBryson here, and this right here is a book review and a little summary on Where Are the Customers' Yachts, or A Good Hard Look at Wall Street by Fred Schroed. Now, this book originally came back out in 1940, so this book is about 82 years old. Like, this book is a classic overall. Now, I'll be honest with you, this is a book that I did not plan on reading whatsoever. I had no idea I was going to read it, but every single time I saw a Warren Buffett shareholders meeting, he would always say, if you want to understand how the market works and why this works and why this doesn't work, just go read this book right here. And I always imagined that this book was going to be like massive. I'm talking about like at least 900 pages. Well, this book is not that long. It's about 140, 150 pages. And 170 pages overall, but altogether, it is an amazing read. And there is so much comedy in this book that you can just basically laugh all the way throughout it. But if you really comprehend what the author is saying here, it really does make sense. Because, by the way, Fred, in my understanding, lost a bundle of money back in 1929 when we had the whole like Great Depression stuff, right, in the market crash. So he lost money, and he was also working in Wall Street, and he started to kind of analyze how actually Wall Street works. So when you read this book, it starts off by telling you exactly what Wall Street is and what are the different parts of Wall Street. What is the best investment tactic in Wall Street? Why is short selling a good idea or a bad idea? And the overall analysis is, if you are a normal person, what should be your way of going about investing? And it tells you about all the trickery that happens in Wall Street to basically just make money and kind of leave you dry. Okay, now one big idea that I got from this book here, which by the way, I finished yesterday. I like doing my book reviews the day of, but it was like late at night, so I couldn't do it. But I'm here today to actually give you guys my thoughts here. One of the biggest ideas that I found in this book is basically the concept that when you are dealing with, for example, brokers, people that basically make money by you doing some activity, their incentives are very screwed over, okay? Because if I make money via you doing activity, it doesn't matter if you make money or if you lose money to me. And there's this saying that goes about in this book, and by the way, I guarantee that if you're a reader of books when it comes to like financial markets and so on, and you're just in tune with all this stuff, you're gonna, or like personal finance overall, you're gonna find like 3 to 5 quotes in this book that originally came from this book. You thought that those other books you read basically made it up. But there's this amazing quote, and it's kind of funny, that they say when 5 p.m. hits and the market basically closes, the brokers throw all the money in the air, and whatever sticks to the ceiling basically belongs to the customers, and what doesn't, well, it belongs to Wall Street, okay? And it kind of goes about saying, for example, it's not like these people are very mischievous in the sense, but it's just that overall, it's just speculation running rampant. The idea that you can just basically make money overnight. And he also talks about, one of my favorite parts in this book is actually the idea that if you have someone that makes a lot of money in financial markets, taking on a massive amount of risk, a lot of people grab that idea and say, well, this guy must be amazing. He must be so good. But it's the equivalent of saying, for example, by the way, the overall idea of this book, to concise it, is what Wall Street actually is, what you need to avoid, and what you should actually be doing. And overall, Wall Street is a place where you're exchanging goods in a sense, right? You're buying this company, but between every transaction, there is a buyer and a seller. Always. So whatever idea you think you have to say, hey, well, this is going to make me a lot of money, the other person saying like, hey, this is not going to make me money, so I'm probably going to sell it right now. So there's always this idea of exchanges and ideas basically going on, and you don't really know exactly what's going on if you don't understand what you're actually investing into. And it's kind of like everyone thinks that investing into the stock market is just investing into statistics and just numbers and ticker symbols, and this company was this today, is going to be this tomorrow. But the overall idea is that what really matters is the company and the fundamentals behind those companies, and you as an investor learning how to analyze a company. And the value of a company is just all of its future cash flows discounted to today's net present value. That's really what all it is, okay? So it's kind of like if you're trying to figure out what a company is worth, how do you figure that out? Well, how much money is this company going to make you in free cash flow? And free cash flow is basically the amount of money a company can make after all of its expenses, what the company needs to actually stay afloat and continue the business and its operations, and whatever is left over, that's free cash flow. It's available money that doesn't need to be used for anything else. So with that free money, what you basically want to do is, well, you grab that money and you kind of estimate it over a long period of time, like forever basically, and you kind of discount it to what that money would be worth today, because the idea is, as an investor, you're basically punishing a company. And what I mean by that is, well, if I were to invest $1,000 into this company and you're promising me, for example, like $1 in earnings or whatever, well, I got to account that $1,000 could have made me 10% the discount rate somewhere else. So I got to value exactly what you're actually giving me is worth today, okay? Because everything in finance and stocks, it's all about the future, but it's also discounted today on what you could actually do with that money today and all the other opportunities, okay? That's how you kind of value a company overall, and you learn that over time. Now, is this book going to teach you that? The answer is no. If you want to know that, you want to read The Intelligent Investor by Benjamin Graham. But this book is more just like a very funny book to educate you on what financial markets are, why it's very hard to get rich in them. And you know, Warren Buffett also has this quote, and I love this quote because it kind of makes a lot of sense. And it's the idea that, you know, when I've never done this personally because I'm not a gambling guy. I cannot stand gambling. But overall, I like playing, like making bets where I know I'm going to win. Is very cheating, but that's what I like to do. I don't like to gamble. That's just stupid. But overall, it's kind of, you know, like those racehorse races, is that how you say it? And people basically go ahead and they say, hey, I'm going to bet this much on this horse. And the whole idea is that you can't win all the races, but you can handicap a race and basically win when the opportunity basically comes about. And the same thing happens with the stock market. You're probably not going to beat the stock market overall, but if you can find a company inside, for example, a large company or a small company with a lot of prospects for the future that actually has fundamentals to show you, hey, this is actually a good company, and you invest into it, then you have the potential to say, hey, this company is probably going to do great. And that's what Warren Buffett basically does, you know. The idea is not, for example, to pick one company, but it's to pick a collection of companies, right? They're selling for less than their worth, which is basically what their discounted cash flows are today, divided by their shares. Kind of sounds complicated, but it's not that difficult. The idea is if this company is worth $1,000, and that's what I discounted it to today, and there's 100 shares available, well, 1,000 divided by 100, that's $10 per share. And I also want to have, for example, a margin of safety, maybe 50%. So I'll buy this company when it's selling for like $5 per share, just in case I make a mistake. So you're buying a collection of these companies, right? And if you have a collection of these companies, over time, overall, you're going to outperform the market. But to say that by you gambling, by you short selling, by you day trading, he talks about all this stuff in here, and he tells you all of these things kind of just end up to zero. Like a lot of these things are just gambling. There's no real science behind it. There's no real method. And one of my favorite examples here is, this is actually very funny, but he has this very good example where he talks about a coin flipping challenge, right? You have 1,000 people and they're flipping coins, right? And the idea is if you can land on heads, you win. If you land on tails, you lose. So obviously, the first time these 1,000 people grab these 1,000 coins and they go ahead and flip it, guess what? You probably imagine it. 50% of them go, 50% of them basically stay. Now you're left with 500 winners and 500 losers. Those people lost. Then they go ahead and they flip again. And then again, you're left with 250 winners and 250 losers. And it kind of goes on and on and on and on until you're left, for example, with like 50 winners that have won for the past like 5 to 6 times. And they're like, I'm an expert at flipping coins. And people come from all over the world to find out what is your technique to flip a coin, right? But it's just probability and it's just odds. It's just pure luck. And one big thing that he kind of delivers on, because you gotta understand, right? This guy is someone that walks in, like he works in Wall Street. Well, worked. I think he's dead a long time ago, but he used to probably work in Wall Street, right? And the idea is you gotta understand that he probably had bosses and all this stuff. And he says, Tommy, a lot of this stuff is just like you have a boss that thinks he knows what he's doing, but in reality, all this stuff is just speculation overall, because valuation and investing is not an exact science. It's basically, this is an awesome quote too from someone else, and it says it's not a science, but it's an art that's influenced or assisted by science. And that's the thing, because valuation is speculative and is subjective. So that's why you can have, like Warren Buffett also says, okay, he says, I can value a company and Charlie Munger will value the company, and we would come up with two different numbers because we have different ways to value something. So obviously, if it was an exact science, then all the mathematicians would be rich because they know a lot more about math than we do. Now, overall, what do I have to say about this book, guys? This book is a solid read. Did I read this book to study? The answer is no. I read this book more as like recreational reading when it comes to the book of finances and so on. But it is a very educative book on the basics. No, I wouldn't even say basics because this stuff is like, most people don't understand this stuff, but it's a very educated book on financial markets, especially our market, and how it actually works, what the incentives basically are, and how you should actually approach the entire thing. So if you ask me, Tommy, how would you go about investing after you read this book? Well, the idea is if you're going to be picking companies, you got to understand the business overall and the fundamentals of them. And when I say fundamentals, what I mean is, what are the earnings? Can you predict this company's earnings into the future? The reason people say that, oh, the fundamentals are so important and to basically understand the company is so important, it's because when you're trying to predict what something's going to do over the long term, if you don't understand the business, how can you predict anything? The answer is no. And even when you try to predict and you know everything, you don't know what's going to happen. So that's why you need to adjust with a margin of safety. So that's the whole idea. But if you want to, for example, just have some money and invest it over time and grow it passively, the best way is probably going to be, for example, investing into an index fund, which are open-ended funds. And what that basically means is that when you buy into them, they create a share for you and they basically give it to you. And whenever you sell, they have to basically liquidate that share and basically give you that money in cash. It doesn't matter really. I'm just complicating things for the sake of complicating it. But an index fund, for example, like the S&P 500, you're investing into the 500 largest companies in the US. All other products, for example, like investing into the international markets, into the bond markets, into the real estate market, into small cap markets, and just to have diversification. The idea is diversification is just a way to kind of like calm down on volatility because you're already diversified by investing into 500 companies, right? So, and you're investing into the US market, and we are the biggest and we are the best. So the equivalent of our market's going to zero is the equivalent of almost like the whole world basically losing out. Now, will we be the best forever? Probably not. But for the next 50, 60 years, we'll probably see about that. But the S&P 500 is probably like the only investment you really need to make, and you don't need to be gambling back and forth with this company and that company. You can just basically just invest a set amount of money into that and let that money grow over time and be patient. You know, he says a lot of the times that one of the biggest problems with people when they have money is they kind of have this itch to just basically do something, to feel like they're productive. But a lot of capitalism and just like working when capital allocation is just sitting on your butt until you find some opportunities. Or if you're not going to be looking for opportunities, it's just having your money compound at a very good rate without taking that much risk, for example, by investing into an index fund. That's the idea, guys. Overall, this book I highly recommend. It is a good read. It's a short read. And I read very slow. So it took me about, I think, 5 to 7 days to actually read it. So I'm not sure. There are a lot of jokes. It is funny. The language is not that bad, but I did have to use like a dictionary sometimes and some of the Frenchy fancy words that he has in here. But it's a good read. And my favorite part about this book, there are pictures. So there are a lot of pictures in this book. And am I spoiling it for you guys? A lot of pictures. And he talks about options and, well, I don't think he has derivatives in here because that was beyond his time, but he does talk about like options and short selling and everything else and like how dangerous it actually is and why people actually get into all those different things and how people think that basically if the market goes down, they instantly want to find somebody to blame. So they tend to blame, for example, the brokers and so on. But in reality, the brokers are just as stupid as they are. It's a book that once you're done with like reading it, it just leaves you kind of just being like, okay, like I fully comprehend this. And then this one is one of my favorite ones, which by the way, I think YouTube will demonetize me. So let me just, but that, you know what it is, right? But he says, you know, this is one of my favorite things. He says, there are certain things that cannot be adequately explained to someone that hasn't done something before, either by words or pictures. Like some things when it comes to there's a quote, when it comes to the market and how things work, you can't explain it until you experienced it. And he says that about short selling, I think. He says like if you wanna learn more about puts and calls and short selling, go do it and then find out once you lose your money. Yeah, guys, that is about it. Thanks for watching this video. And I will say one thing, man, that sometimes the best thing you can do when it comes to investing is keeping things like simple. And that really is what it comes down to. And the more you comprehend about how the market works and what to avoid, you might think that these books are basically useless in the sense that they're not really giving you a formula to do something, but they're giving you a mindset when it comes to investing. And that's what investing mostly is for the most of it, because the little math and little, not really statistics, the little math and little formulas that we have, those are things that basically everyone has. But the idea of the way you understand a business and the way you think about the market, that's what everybody doesn't have. So this is what I love about this book, is it kind of just adds to the chamber of knowledge when it comes to capital allocation, when it comes to the right way of investing, and when it comes to just understanding why are most people poor and what you don't need and what you should be doing when it comes to your money. And by the way, I will add this last quote here for the sake of adding it if you're still watching this video. And it's that, you know, we have had some bad times in America. You know, like the Great Depression, I wasn't alive. You probably weren't alive either. But from what I've heard, for example, from Charlie Munger, which is a very good investor, he said people were very poor, man. Like people were literally walking around begging for food here and there. They would go to the supermarket, get the cheapest cut of meats, like organ meat and all that stuff. And not to say like that's a problem, right? Because we have a lot of third world countries. But the point is things can get very bad, like very bad. So the best thing you can do is take advantage of all your opportunities right now and execute. Because you don't know how bad things you're going to get at some point. We never really know. But guys, thanks for watching. I think it's my second time saying thanks for watching. I just have a lot to say about this video. But as always, like, subscribe, hit the bell so you get notified. I'm happy if this video added value to you. Go buy this book. It's definitely worth it. On top of that, up here is another book review or another video if you want to watch that. And over here is my face. Go subscribe. And as always, Long Term Team officially out.
Yep, that's me.